Welcome to the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. I am your host, Ian Rickelli. We have a fantastic show planned out for you tonight here on prconnectionsradio.com. Right now in the sports world, you have MLB, you have the NBA that just ended in the NBA draft. Kudos to all the people who just got drafted. In the NFL, the offseason, and all the stuff that's going on right now with a certain team we're going to talk about later in the show. NHL, Stanley Cup, that is done and over with. NHL offseason, that's going to be coming up. Hockey Hall of Fame, that's going to be coming up. It is going to be a fantastic time to be a sports fan. Heck, if you are an auto racing fan, you have the Formula One Grand Prix. You have your NASCAR races out there. There is a lot to discuss in the sports world. But what I really want to focus on tonight, what I really want to discuss on this episode 15 of the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, is who is the worst franchise in NFL? Who is the worst franchise in sports? I really want to analyze and I really want to break it down as to really who is the worst of the worst. Who is the garbage of the garbage? Who is the trash of the trash in the NFL? I really want to analyze this, use actual data to back up the fact that there is one team in the NFL who is beyond repair and is without a shadow of a doubt the worst franchise in NFL history. Now, if you're looking at the title I have right down below me, it'll give you a subtle hint as to who it could be. It will give you a subtle hint as to the team I'm talking about for the first segment of this show, episode 15 of the Sports Angle on prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. And before we break down that team, I'm going to go over a few suspects. I want to go over a few teams that is around that level of garbage, but is not there yet. The first team you really got to analyze and talk about when it comes to not living up to potential, when it comes to making mistake after mistake after mistake, is the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons, regardless if it was Arthur Blank, regardless of who the ownership was, the Atlanta Falcons have never been a top dog. The Atlanta Falcons have never been an organization that you consider the best of the best. Atlanta Falcons have never been a top-tier organization. Now, I mean, you could talk about and analyze them losing 28-3. You can make the obvious jokes about blowing a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl, but it goes a lot deeper than that. It really goes a lot deeper than just them blowing a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. It's about the fact that the Atlanta Falcons were fined by the NFL for piping in crowd noise because their fans weren't loud enough. This is the same Atlanta Falcons team that hired a head coach not once but twice in separate decades to run the team into the ground. It's the same Atlanta Falcons team that, despite the fact that they had a quarterback that they traded to get all these assets, they then trade back to get that same quarterback who ended up being a disgrace. Atlanta is bad. Don't get me wrong. Atlanta is a bad franchise in the NFL. But they're not as bad as the team I'm going to talk about. The Buffalo Bills. You could sit there and say, oh, the Buffalo Bills, in terms of luck, is the worst in the NFL. You could say that them losing 4 straight Super Bowls is bad. You could talk about the fact that the Buffalo Bills didn't have a new stadium for so many years. That was bad. You could talk about the fact that the Buffalo Bills did the Music City Miracle. That was bad. However, they're not a bad franchise. I do not believe that the Wilson family and the Pagula family are bad owners. I do not believe that the general manager and the owner and the executives are bad executives. The Buffalo Bills have bad luck, but they're not a bad franchise. Hey, you want to take digs at the Carolina Panthers? Go right ahead. I've been saying for the longest time that Carolina being a franchise in the NFL really didn't make much sense to begin with, just like their counterpart in Jacksonville really didn't make much sense to add them in the first place. But you got to understand something. You really have to understand that when it comes to Carolina, at least they've been to a Super Bowl. At least they've been to 2 Super Bowls. Carolina, they've had some bad luck in terms of ownership, but on the field, Carolina's been decent. On the field, they had Cam Newton. On the field, they at least had talent that went on to be all-pro selections. They at least had players in Carolina who actually knew how to do the job and actually knew how to do it properly. The team I'm about to talk about does not. Hey, you want to say Chicago Bears? Anybody in the comments section who says the Chicago Bears? Hey, as somebody who is a Chicago Bears fan myself, yeah, when you're losing 59-13 against the Green Bay Packers, no doubt about it, you want to go and cuss out your TV screen. You want to chug down 15 beers. I get it. And the ownership is bad. All right, the McCaskies have ran the Bears into the ground. It's well documented. It's no kept secret. The Chicago Bears will not win a title while a McCaskey is owner. But what separates the Chicago Bears from this organization, what separates the Chicago Bears from being the worst franchise in the NFL, is that they have at least won a Super Bowl. What separates the Chicago Bears from a franchise I'm about to talk about is that in the last 20 years, the Chicago Bears have been to at least 2 NFC championship games. The Chicago Bears haven't had to have number 1 overall pick after number 1 overall pick after number 1 overall pick. As a matter of fact, the Chicago Bears have not had a number 1 overall pick in decades. The difference between a bad franchise and a trash franchise is the Chicago Bears and the team I'm going to talk about. Now that I've given you the appetizer, now that I've given you a little teaser, the team that I'm going to talk about as the worst franchise in NFL is the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are by far, without a shadow of a doubt, the worst franchise in sports. Make no mistake about it, there is no franchise who has a worse owner than Cleveland. There is no team that has worse executives than Cleveland. There is no organization that has had more choices that have gone bad than Cleveland. There is no organization who has had number 1 overall picks turn into failures like Cleveland. There is no franchise who's had to have their team taken away from them and brought back just for them to suffer like Cleveland. Understand that I do not blame the fans. I'm gonna be positive for a second before I go back into a rant. I do not blame fans of Cleveland for this. I do not blame Cleveland Browns fans for what is happening with the Cleveland Browns. Because the Cleveland Browns fans, they are not the ones that are making executive decisions. Cleveland Browns fans are not making the money and spending it as they are, as like Jim Haslam is with the Cleveland Browns. Understand that the Cleveland Browns fan base is pretty much held hostage by the ownership decisions in Cleveland. Understand that the Cleveland Browns fans have no point and they have no part of what I'm about to talk about. Now that I've gotten that disclaimer out of the way, here's why the Cleveland Browns are the worst franchise in not just the NFL, but you can make an argument. Cleveland Browns are the worst franchise in sports history. For starters, let's talk about how the Cleveland Browns have had the worst ownership of all time. How about we talk about the fact that the Cleveland Browns, from the day that they started, was surrounded by terrible ownership. Okay, I want you to understand how bad the Cleveland Browns have had it in terms of ownership. Because when it comes to the Cleveland Browns, when it comes to the people that they have had as their owners, regardless if it was the Lanier family, if it was Jimmy Haslam, regardless of who it has been, the Cleveland Browns ownership group has been abysmal. Okay, understand that it was Art Modell who abandoned them to go to Baltimore. If it was the Lerner family, who they only made one playoff appearance in their entire run as the principal owner of the Cleveland Browns, or Jimmy Haslam, who treats the Cleveland Browns as pretty much just a tax write-off. Understand that when it comes to the Cleveland Browns organization, it starts from the top. It starts from the person that is in charge. And I feel bad. I feel bad for Cleveland Browns fans because Art Modell, he did not care about Cleveland. Art Modell did not care about the fans. Art Modell wanted a fancy, shiny new stadium. Cleveland said no, and he hightailed it to Baltimore. Al Lerner and Randy Lerner, they took the Cleveland Browns, and due to their mismanagement and due to the lack of success, ran Cleveland into the ground when they were the owners from the late 90s to early 2010s. Jimmy Haslam, ever since he bought the Cleveland Browns in the early 2010s, has proven time and time again that he does not care about Cleveland. Jimmy Haslam has proven with his actions that he will do whatever it takes to make the Cleveland Browns into a laughingstock. Jimmy Haslam will do whatever it takes to make sure the Cleveland Browns get into the headlines in every bad way possible. Regardless if it is Jimmy Haslam's personal life and the stuff that he has done in his personal life, which I'm not going to talk about on this show, regardless if it's all the business deals that Jimmy Haslam has done, which has been very shady in Cleveland, or the fact that they are wanting to pay a quarterback a $235 million guaranteed contract, despite the fact that he had 24 sexual assault allegations against him. Jimmy Haslam does not care about Cleveland. So you got that part. You have the fact that the owner does not care about the city. When you think about the executives, how would anybody succeed when you've had such a high turnover rate as general manager? I want you to keep this in mind, all right? The Cleveland Browns, since 1999, have had 10 general managers since 1999. Understand that the New England Patriots have had 2 in that time span. The Cleveland Browns have had 10 general managers since 1999. The Pittsburgh Steelers have only had 3 in their entire franchise. The Cleveland Browns have had 10 general managers since 1999, since they were brought back. The Baltimore Ravens, who, by the way, was the franchise that the Cleveland Browns used to be, don't even have half of that since joining the NFL. When you have such a high turnover rate, when you have such a high flip-floppiness in Cleveland, there is no chance of being good in that type of situation. Understand that when it comes to Baltimore, I give them a lot of credit. Eric DeCosta and Ozzie Newsome have been the two general managers in Baltimore Ravens history. In the same time, the Cleveland Browns have had 10. The reason why Baltimore have won 2 titles since Cleveland was created is because they have stability. The reason why the Baltimore Ravens have won 2 Super Bowls is because they have a scouting department that they don't fire every other year. The reason why the Cleveland Browns have sucked is because of the turnover rate. Understand that it wasn't Dwight Clark's fault that in the first 3 years of the Cleveland Browns' existence, they had one of the worst win-loss totals by an expansion franchise. It was not Butch Davis's fault that in 2004, after leading them to their first playoff appearance in franchise history, they decided to can him to bring in a Bruce Belichick prodigy. Understand that the Cleveland Browns, it wasn't their fault that from 2009 to 2013, they had 3 general managers in 4 years. It wasn't Ray Farmer's fault that they only gave him a year and a half to be general manager. It wasn't Sashi Brown's fault that he was only given 2 years as an executive despite the fact that he had no experience prior. It wasn't John Dorsey's fault that he was only given 2 years as a general manager despite the fact that he kind of built the Cleveland Browns from the ground up. And I'm going to give you a little teaser, a little snippet. If the Cleveland Browns don't make the playoffs this year, do not be surprised if Andrew Berry joins the same list as Ray Farmer. Do not be surprised if Andrew Berry joins the same list as John Dorsey. Do not be surprised if Andrew Berry joins the same list as Michael Lombardi. As a general manager in Cleveland that got his legs swept out from under him because of the executives and how bad they run Cleveland. So you have a high turnover rate from an executive position. You have an ownership group who doesn't care about the team. You have a scouting department who doesn't know how to scout. You also have draft picks who have been massive busts every single time. As a matter of fact, I want someone to ask this question. I'm going to ask the audience watching around the world right now. When it comes to the Cleveland Browns, what if I told you that they went on a 8-year run where they had a bust 8 years in a row? What if I told you that the Cleveland Browns were so terrible at drafting that they had 10 different busts between 1999 to 2006? You don't believe me? I'm going to go into more detail. 1999, they had the first overall pick. They take Tim Couch. Tim Couch was a hell of a quarterback in Kentucky, but he was behind an expansion team. He was behind a terrible offensive line. He really had no receivers. He really had nobody around him. The Cleveland Browns ruined Tim Couch. You had Courtney Brown, who was a number 1 overall pick from Penn State. They drafted him in 2000, and Courtney Brown didn't live up to the hype. He didn't even live up to expectations in the NFL. He never even made it to a Pro Bowl, never was an All-Pro. He was a bust. 2001, they draft Gerald Warren. I mean, you got to understand that Gerald Warren, he played only 3 years with Cleveland, was never a Pro Bowler, was never an All-Pro, and they drafted him top 5. How about William Green, who they drafted in 2002? He only played 50 games in the NFL and was eventually out of the league before the middle of the 2000s. Let's keep going, shall we? 2003, Jeff Fain. All right, yes, he will be remembered for being on the New Orleans Saints, but he only spent 2 seasons with the Cleveland Browns. Understand that he did not end up being a great player. How about Kellen Winslow? I mean, Kellen Winslow was a one-time Pro Bowler, but he had such a problem in Cleveland. He had a leg injury. He had a motorcycle accident. He ended up costing himself a lot of money. Understand that Kellen Winslow was a massive reach and honestly was a huge outlier in Cleveland. He had 1 year of success and went back to mediocrity. How about Braylon Edwards? I mean, Braylon Edwards had 4 years in Cleveland, made one All-Pro selection, but he really did not have good hands. He really did not catch that much. And outside of 1 year he caught for more than 1,000 yards, he never caught more than 800 yards in his career past that point. He never had more than 8 touchdowns in a single season since that 1 year that he did in Cleveland. So Braylon Edwards was disappointing. Kellen Winslow Jr. was disappointing. Understand that Cameron Wimbley, he had a somewhat of a good career, but he ended up not lasting long in Cleveland. You have to wait until Joe Thomas in 2007 to find a great draft pick by the Cleveland Browns. Understand that this is an organization that had 8 picks straight that were disappointing or underachieving. So understand that when it comes to the Cleveland Browns organization, I do not trust it. I do not trust the Cleveland Browns organization because of the reasons that I have described. Because A, the Cleveland Browns have an ownership that does not care about them. You have executives who have such a high turnover rate, they can't get anything accomplished. You have a scouting department who whiffs on first-round picks more than they even make. All right, they have a 1-to-9 hit ratio when it comes to the NFL. That's not a good thing, by the way. Understand that when it comes to the Cleveland Browns organization, the problem with Cleveland starts from the top. The Cleveland Browns have an ownership problem. The Cleveland Browns have an executive problem. So my angle to all of you who are watching the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, my angle is that the Cleveland Browns are the worst franchise in the NFL. The Cleveland Browns are up there as the worst franchise in sports history. And I want to know from all people watching around the world, do you agree or do you disagree that the Cleveland Browns are the worst franchise in sports? Let me know down below. We'll read all those comments and watch them all after the show. Now, let's switch topics for a second. As much as I could continue talking about the Cleveland Browns, and you obviously would be able to love to hear that for an entire hour, we're going to move on to the next topic. Because the Detroit Lions, do you believe in the Detroit Lions? Do you believe the Detroit Lions are going to be good? Are you confident that Detroit has made a step in the right direction? Do you believe that the Cleveland Browns organization, unlike them, the Detroit Lions can actually save their reputation and actually make progress in 2022? Because I've looked at the odds, I've looked at the over and under in the NFL, and I'm going to say on record that I am a big supporter of the Detroit Lions. As a matter of fact, I look at the Detroit Lions organization. I look at their 6.5 win total, which, by the way, came from DraftKings. And when I look at DraftKings and their projected win total, 6.5, I am taking the over on Detroit. I will explain to you why I believe the Detroit Lions are going to be over 6.5. The Detroit Lions have 2 aspects that is going right for them. Understand that Detroit has 2 great opportunities, and they're going to knock that door down this season. First off, the Detroit Lions have upgraded in positions that were weak. Detroit has elevated their depth at receiver. The Detroit Lions have updated their depth on the offensive line. Understand that Detroit getting Aiden Hutchinson, the best player in the 2022 NFL draft, was a great achievement for Detroit. Understand the Detroit Lions doubling down on defense and getting some great players, for example. That was a fantastic move by the Detroit Lions. How about the fact that on this offseason, Detroit spent money when it counted? The Detroit Lions spent money when it mattered the most. They have gotten weapons for Jared Goff. They have gotten running lanes to open up for DeAndre Swift. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to have a breakout year, considering the fact that the Detroit Lions are going to be putting the rock and are going to be passing the ball to St. Brown more often. You also have to consider the Detroit Lions' schedule is not that bad, considering the Detroit Lions have the fourth easiest schedule in the NFL. I understand the Detroit Lions are going to be playing a lot of bad teams in the 2022 NFL season. Understand that when it comes to Detroit Lions, they can capitalize on this. They can capitalize on what the NFL has done for a long time. Understand that the NFL has kind of overlooked and have put them in a box, the Detroit Lions have. Understand that for the first time in about 8 or 9 years, you can make a realistic argument that the Detroit Lions are going to be a playoff team. You could look at the NFL, look at the 7 teams that are contending for a playoff spot, and you could make a valid argument that Detroit is going to be a 7th seed. You could make a realistic argument with how weak the NFC South is, with how weakened the NFC West has become, and with the NFC East being an absolute bloodbath every single year, they're going to be beating up on each other. So my angle, talking about Detroit Lions for a second, my angle for all people watching around the world, do not be surprised. Do not be surprised if the Detroit Lions make the playoffs in 2022. Do not be shocked if the Motor City, all right, if the automotive capital of the United States makes the playoffs. Do not be shocked if the Detroit Lions squeeze their way in as a 7th seed in the NFL. So, in the first half hour of this show, here on the Sports Angle at PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media, with your host, Ian Rickelli, we talked about the Cleveland Browns, how they're the worst franchise in the NFL. I made an argument for why the Detroit Lions are going to be a playoff team in 2022. Now we're going to bring it back home. We're going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. This is sort of our Las Vegas segment here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. And the question is, do you believe the Las Vegas Raiders can win the AFC West in 2022? Are you confident that the Las Vegas Raiders can beat the Denver Broncos, can beat Los Angeles Chargers, can beat Kansas City Chiefs? How confident are you that the Las Vegas Raiders, for the first time since 2002, could be the winners of the AFC West? Keep in mind, folks, that what I just said, it has been 20 long years since the Las Vegas Raiders won their division. It has been 2 decades since the Las Vegas Raiders have hoisted up that banner that says that we are AFC West Division champs 2022. Understand the Las Vegas Raiders have not been able to hoist up that trophy saying we have won the AFC West for insert year in a long time. So realistically, what would be the over and under? What would be the odds that the Las Vegas Raiders end up winning the AFC West? What is the probability? Well, if you go back to DraftKings, and I use them a lot because DraftKings is reliable, I like DraftKings. They have the Las Vegas Raiders at 8.5 wins. They are projected to finish in last in the AFC West. Understand that the DraftKings Sportsbook has the Las Vegas Raiders finishing last in the AFC West. They have the Kansas City Chiefs in first, the Los Angeles Chargers in second, the Denver Broncos in third, and the Las Vegas Raiders in dead last. Now, I'm going to excuse the fact that the DraftKings Sportsbook have Kansas City winning 10 games, Los Angeles winning 10 games, and Denver winning 10 games. I'm just going to go against that for a second. But let's really break this down, shall we? Do I think that Las Vegas is better than Kansas City? Yes, I do. Am I confident that the Las Vegas Raiders have more talent on their roster than Kansas City? Yes, I do. I do believe that the Kansas City Chiefs have taken a massive step back since losing in the Super Bowl. I am very confident that Patrick Mahomes losing Tyreek Hill is going to be a big loss, and it's actually going to be a bigger loss than some fans are anticipating. I do believe that Patrick Mahomes losing his offensive line, majority of his offensive line, it is going to affect how quickly he's going to get the ball out of his hands. His lack of a running game is going to affect and put more pressure on Patrick Mahomes to pass the ball around. And when you don't have another weapon and all you have is Travis Kelce and maybe a little bit of Juju Smith-Schuster, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to finish near the bottom of the AFC West. So do I think Las Vegas could beat Kansas City? Yes, I do. Do I think that Las Vegas could beat Los Angeles? That one's a tough one. It will be very tough to have Las Vegas beat Los Angeles not once but twice in the AFC West. It is going to be a very tough task for Las Vegas and Josh McDaniels to beat an up and rising and up and coming Justin Herbert. It's going to be very difficult for the Las Vegas Raiders organization to consistently top the Los Angeles Chargers with all the talent that they got on their roster. Understand that the Chargers organization with Khalil Mack, with Joey Bosa, with J.C. Jackson, with all of this talent that the Los Angeles Chargers have on defense now to supplement the offense that's already good in L.A. I am going to lean towards maybe. All right? I'm going to lean towards maybe with the Chargers. And it's a possibility. But what I'm not going to do is say yes for the Denver Broncos. And all the people who are watching around the world right now, I want you to turn up the volume. I want you to make sure that you really listen to what I got to say. The Denver Broncos are the best team in the AFC West. The Denver Broncos organization is without a chance the most talented roster in the West. Russell Wilson is the breaking point. He is the X factor. He is the impact player in Denver. Understand that when it comes to Russell Wilson, he is the guy who's made Denver better overall. There's also the same organization who brought back Melvin Gordon to be the 1,000-yard rusher he was in Denver last year. It's also the same Denver Broncos organization who has built their depth at wide receiver. It's also the same Denver Broncos team that is projected to have a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. A top 5 offensive line, mind you, Russell Wilson has never had once. Russell Wilson has never had a solid offensive line in his career. Russell Wilson has never had a decent offensive line to protect him. Russell Wilson in his career has had a bunch of either veterans who are no longer going to be able to protect him, or he has a bunch of rookies and second-year guys who are going to be bull rushed consistently, and Russell Wilson had to run for his life every single play. Denver's going to be better. The defense is going to get better. With the amount of seasoning and with the amount of talent that the Denver Broncos have accumulated this offseason, it is a hard no that the Raiders are going to beat the Broncos in the AFC West. So it's a yes on the Chiefs. It is a maybe on the Chargers. But it is a definitive no on the Denver Broncos. If you want to comment down below, if you want to go onto our Twitter at SportsAngle on PR, if you want to debate me on that, go right ahead. But understand that when it comes to the Denver Broncos organization, they are the best roster in the AFC West. The Las Vegas Raiders, they are going to be third place, potentially second, but they are not going to win the division. My hot take is that the Las Vegas Raiders will not win the AFC West in 2022. Take that to the bank. Cash that out if you want. Go right ahead. It's just a fact. The Raiders are over and under 8.5. The Raiders organization will not win a division. The Raiders will not make the playoffs. And the Raiders are not going to win a Super Bowl. It's just a fact. And understand that when it comes to the Las Vegas Raiders organization, it is not going to happen. So now we're talking about the NFL here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. There was a topic that got brought up very recently that we need to discuss here on the show. There is a discussion that needs to be told here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. Now, everybody remembers the 1972 Miami Dolphins. A lot of people remember the fact that the 72 Miami Dolphins are the only franchise in the AFL-NFL merger to be undefeated. Understand that ever since the modern era, which is the AFL-NFL merger, understand the Denver Broncos organization has unlike them, they have never been a perfect team. Understand that when it comes to a perfect season, when it comes to being undefeated, the Miami Dolphins have been the only team. They have been the only organization that has been able to do it. They have been the only organization who has been able to win all 17 games. They have been the only organization who has been able to get the job done and actually win every single game in their franchise. Now, I am not going to go all the way back. I am not going to go all the way back to the early 1900s. I'm not going to go back to the late 1920s. I am not going to do that. We're focusing on modern era. Okay, we are focusing on, the 1970s to current. When it comes to the undefeated season, here is why I will respectfully say it is not possible. Here's why I respectfully say it is not going to happen. The 2007 New England Patriots. A lot of people remember that team. A lot of people remember the 18-1. A lot of people remember that the New England Patriots almost got there. In fact, if it wasn't for David Tyree and Plexico Burress, they would have been undefeated. But nonetheless, they did not get there. They did not do it. The reason why they did not do it is because of the fact that when it came to the NFL, it was not in the cards. They did not finish the job. They were not able to go 19-0. They were not able to get the job done. So let me give you 2 reasons why an undefeated season is not possible. Let me give you 2 reasons as to why the Miami Dolphins are going to be the last organization to have ever been undefeated in NFL history. The first reason is that they have more games to play than they did in 1972. The Miami Dolphins went 17-0. Okay? The Miami Dolphins went 17-0. They won the division, but here's something a lot of people don't remember. Back then, the NFL playoffs was only 2 games. Understand that back then, only 4 teams made it to the playoffs. Understand that because it was the AFC versus the NFC, only the division winners got there. Understand that because of what happened back then, that the best 4 teams got into each division, and each 4 got in on the other side. Okay, understand that when it comes to the Miami Dolphins, they did not have to play as many games as they do now. Understand that they have to play 3 extra regular season games and have to play a potential extra playoff game in the NFL. Understand that in 2021, if you use the NFL playoff bracket, if you use the 2021 NFL season as a comparison, it will tell you exactly what you need to know. In order to go undefeated in the NFL, I want you to really stop and analyze this. To go undefeated, you have to win 20 games. Okay, you have to go 20-0 in order to be undefeated. That is a trio of games more than the Miami Dolphins. Okay, Miami only had to win 17 games to win the Super Bowl. To do it now, you have to win 20. You have to win 3 extra games in order to be undefeated. That means that there's 3 extra outliers, 3 extra variables for you to go over. Understand that winning 20 games in a row is near impossible. Winning 20 games in a row is a task in itself. Now, the regular season, it's been done before. The regular season has been accomplished. Okay, understand that the New England Patriots, they did win 16 games straight, but yet they lost at game 19. Understand that there are organizations, for example, like the Indianapolis Colts, who won 14 regular season games, but then they lost at 15. How about the 2015 Carolina Panthers, who went 14-0, and they ended up losing 2 games after that? How about an organization like the Chicago Bears? The Chicago Bears started the season 12-0 and only lost one game in that entire year. So when it comes to the undefeated season, the first reason why it will not happen in the modern era, the first reason why an undefeated season will never happen in the NFL is because it is 20 games now. It is winning 20 games in a row. It is not 17 like the Miami Dolphins had in the 70s. It is not 19 games like it was with the New England Patriots. It is not 18 games like it would have been with the Chicago Bears. Understand that when it comes to the modern era of the NFL, because they've added more games, it is near impossible to win 20 games in a row. And the second reason as to why it will not happen, the second reason as to why winning 20 games in a row, being undefeated in the NFL is not happening, it's not practical. The money aspect of it. The sportsbook side of it. Understand that in the modern era, where money is king, in the modern era, where sportsbooks and betting and putting fantasy football down and all of these things that affect the bottom line, having a team win 20 games in a row would not benefit all parties. Having all 20 games won by the same team would not benefit the fantasy football owners who bet all this money on their fantasy football team. The 20-game perfect season would not benefit the sports books because one week they might have a blowout, but the next week there might be a 3-point margin. Next week there might be a push between both of those teams. Understand that we saw it, the Arizona Cardinals, who went 8-0 to start the season last year, they started falling off the face of the earth, and a lot of people picked up on the fact that the money side of it was a huge indicator as to why. So, the two reasons why there will not be an undefeated season in the NFL ever again is that they have 20 games to play in a regular season, which means you have to win 20 games in a row. And the second reason is that there is too much money involved for a perfect season to happen. There is too much money being there's too much money being put back and forth to have a team go undefeated. There is too much money at stake. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It would not be good for all parties. I want to know if you agree or disagree. I want you to go down into the comment section down below. I want you to go onto our social media at Sports Angle on PR. I want you to tell me, do you agree or do you disagree? There will never be another undefeated season in the NFL. The 1972 Miami Dolphins achieved a miracle. The 1972 Miami Dolphins achieved a feat that will never happen again. Because of the amount of games that have been added and the fact you got to win 20, you also got to remember and understand that when it comes to the NFL, there is that situation that when it comes to the NFL, there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of sports books involved. And when it comes to the NFL, there is going to be a huge situation if a team wins 20 games in a row. So we were talking about the undefeated season in the NFL here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. And we talked about the Cleveland Browns in the first segment, the fact that the Cleveland Browns are the worst franchise in sports history. We talked about the Detroit Lions and why I believe they will be the playoff team in 2022. I've also talked about the Las Vegas Raiders and why they will not win the division in 2022. And we just talked about the undefeated season and why it is near impossible in the modern NFL. So the last segment we're doing here on the NFL side of the PR Connections Radio, voice of new media. The New Orleans Saints organization. Hey, are you all right? Hey, the New Orleans Saints, are you okay? Because I don't think you're okay. I honestly don't believe the New Orleans Saints are doing okay. The reason why I say this is because the New Orleans Saints organization has had some interesting things come up to light. The interesting thing is that when it comes to New Orleans Saints, there has been a injury galore that has been affecting New Orleans. Understand that New Orleans has had an interesting situation where they have had their stars get injured. They've had their young players get injured. They have had all of these guys end up being put on the IR before the season has even happened. How about the fact that when it comes to their defensive end, Peyton Turner, their young defensive end, he had shoulder surgery. Peyton Turner had a shoulder problem. He went to go get it fixed, and people don't know if he's going to be coming back. How about Ryan Ramczyk? I mean, understand that he is one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL, but his injury-plagued season last year, is that going to happen this year? How about Michael Thomas? Michael Thomas has missed 26 of the past 35 games. Is he going to be healthy? Is star wide receiver Michael Thomas even going to play in New Orleans this year? I think really the question you have to ask yourself is, if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, if you are a New Orleans fan, do you believe that the Saints are not going to be as injury-riddled as last year? Are you confident that Dennis Allen will row the ship like Sean Payton did? Because I look at this organization and I watch the New Orleans Saints. And how about Jameis Winston's knee? Because Jameis Winston has had a knee problem for a while. Jameis Winston has had problems with that knee since getting injured last year. So my angle for the New Orleans Saints organization is this. My angle is that the New Orleans Saints, if healthy, could be a playoff team. The New Orleans Saints, if healthy, could be a great franchise in the NFL. However, if the New Orleans Saints organization is injury-riddled, if New Orleans cannot get over the injury bug, the New Orleans Saints are going to have a terrible year. The New Orleans Saints are going to have a frustrating year. Because the New Orleans Saints organization, if they are as injury-riddled as they were last year, do not expect anything. Do not expect playoffs. Do not expect greatness. Do not expect your roses. Understand that when it comes to New Orleans Saints organization, do not get your hopes up. Because the New Orleans Saints, this is a situation that could go very bad and could go very wrong in a second. Now, we're going to get into the NHL side here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. And there was some interesting news that came out of the NHL world. There's been some great back and forth conversations that have been going on, and we are going to talk about it here on the show, here on Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. The first headline that popped off today actually came from a Vegas Golden Knight, or to put it bluntly, a former Vegas Golden Knight. Former Vegas Golden Knights first-round pick Cody Glass has been signed to a two-way deal with the Nashville Predators. Cody Glass, who once after being traded from the Henderson Silver Knights to the Milwaukee Admirals, who is the minor league affiliate of the Nashville Predators. Cody Glass last year in 66 AHL games had 62 points, a plus 15, and scored 14 goals. There's also the same Cody Glass only had 1 point, unfortunately, in 8 NHL games for Nashville. So Cody Glass getting a 1-year contract worth $800,000. Here's what it tells me. Here's what it tells me about Cody Glass. And I'm going to get some flack for this. I know I'm going to get some feedback. Cody Glass is a phenomenal minor league player. I understand that Cody Glass was averaging near a point per game in the AHL when he was playing in Vegas. I understand that Cody Glass was averaging nearly a point per game last year in Milwaukee in the AHL. But Cody Glass has only had 23 career points in over 75 games in the NHL. So what that tells me is that Cody Glass is not an NHL player. Cody Glass will not succeed as an NHL player. Cody Glass, who was drafted with a top 10 pick in the NHL, at the age of 24 years old, is going to be a bottom 6 forward at best, top line center in the minors at best. Understand that Cody Glass is going to be a great AHL player for the next 6 or 7 years. Cody Glass is going to be a guy who is going to be well respected in Milwaukee. He's going to be well respected in Chicago. He's going to be well respected in any AHL team that takes him on. But the problem with Cody Glass, and his health proved it, his play proved it, Cody Glass will not succeed in the NHL. Cody Glass will not be able to be that guy who will get the job done in the NHL. And honestly, this really shouldn't be that big of a surprise. I mean, understand that when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, when it comes to the Nashville Predators, they've tried to help Cody Glass. They've tried to make Cody Glass a better player. But unfortunately, he just is not that type of guy. Unfortunately, Cody Glass is not that type of player. And the worst part about it is that if you understand the 2017 NHL draft class, the very next pick, the Vegas Golden Knights could really be kicking themselves right now because they could have gotten one of the most skilled up-and-coming guys in the NHL right now. But instead, they went and got Cody Glass. All right? With the 8th pick, the Buffalo Sabres selected center Casey Mittelstadt. Casey Mittelstadt has had 80 points, 33 career goals with the Buffalo Sabres. Understand that Casey Mittelstadt has been a guy who has been averaging around 20 to 25 points on the bottom 6 in Buffalo. Understand that when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, even if they would have waited for just a second and even drafted somebody below them like a Michael Ramson, who had 27 points this year, they have all had better numbers than Cody Glass has had. Heck, even the 10th pick, who is Philadelphia Flyers' Owen Tippett, he even had better numbers in Florida than Cody Glass has had in the NHL. So, when it comes to that 2017 NHL draft, you really have to look back and question, was Cody Glass the right move? Was Cody Glass really the right decision in the long-term haul? But since we're talking about the 2017 NHL draft, we're going to do something here on this show. It's going to be a segment called Hit, Meh, or Miss. Okay? Hit, miss, or meh. In other words, after 5 years of the 2017 NFL draft, we're going to take a look back at the players drafted by the Vegas Golden Knights, and I'm going to tell you if I think it was a hit or if I think it was a miss, or a meh means they really haven't been given a chance yet. So Cody Glass, that was a miss. I really don't have much to say about that besides the fact that Cody Glass has been a miss. He was really an unfortunate situation. The next pick they drafted, it was 13th overall, Nick Suzuki, who, by the way, was just given an 8-year deal, $63 million with a modified no trade clause. He had 61 points in 82 games this year with the Montreal Canadiens. Nick Suzuki, a one-time All-Star, has had 49 goals in his career already, 143 points, and has been to the Stanley Cup Final in 2021. Now, if I said all of that energetically with a lot of energy, it's for a reason. Nick Suzuki has been a smash hit. Nick Suzuki was the best player the Vegas Golden Knights drafted. Make no mistake about it that the Vegas Golden Knights, they picked the best player in their franchise so far, and they traded him for Max Pacioretty. So Nick Suzuki was a hit, but trading him away for Max Pacioretty was a miss. The third selection the Vegas Golden Knights did in the 2017 NHL draft, they drafted Swedish defenseman Erik Brannstrom, 15th overall. Now, Erik Brannstrom, he has actually not been in the NHL. As a matter of fact, he's only had 31 points in 116 games with the Ottawa Senators. However, here's the caveat. Erik Brannstrom has been in the starting lineup the past 3 seasons. As a matter of fact, since 2019, Erik Brannstrom has been a permanent member of the Ottawa Senators. He has played with that team in the NHL the past 3 seasons. He's played 116 games already in the NHL. Understand that Erik Brannstrom, with him only being, by the way, 22 years of age at this point, I'm going to say that Erik Brannstrom has been a meh. Okay? He hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. He's a meh. He still has time to improve. He still has time to grow as a NHL level defenseman. But the fact that he has been with Ottawa the past 3 seasons, he's been able to stay in the lineup, he's been able to stay on the roster, that tells me that they haven't given up on him. They haven't given up on him yet. And he also is one of the reasons why Mark Stone is with the Vegas Golden Knights. So that is a positive here in Vegas. Looking back at that draft, they also had Nicholas Hague, who they selected in the second round. I'm going to be blunt here. I have really not been impressed by Nicholas Hague. He has been with the Vegas Golden Knights the past 3 seasons. 11 points, 17 points, 14 points. He has had 10 goals in that time span, 142 games. He has had over 101 penalty minutes. One of the reasons why he's there, by the way. And he has had a plus 20 in his career. So because of his defensive metrics, because of the fact that Nicholas Hague is great defensively, despite the fact that he has been underwhelming offensively, it tells me that despite the fact that he has not been in the lineup every single night, despite the fact that Nicholas Hague has never been a constant in Vegas, I'm going to give Nicholas Hague a meh. All right, I'm going to kind of do the same thing to Erik Brannstrom, what I'm doing to Nicholas Hague. To me, Nicholas Hague has been a meh with the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, he really hasn't been special, but at the same time, he really hasn't been bad either. And the next person I'm going to talk about here on hit or miss with the Vegas Golden Knights looking back at the 2017 NHL draft is Jake Leskinen. He is a forward for the Vegas Golden Knights, drafted in the second round of the 2017 NHL draft. Going to be 24 soon. He had his first season in the NHL this year, played 41 games, had 6 points and only 2 goals in that 41-game span. Now, when it comes to Jake Leskinen, I'm going to give him a miss, mainly because of the fact that he really hasn't been able to develop with the Vegas Golden Knights. He really has not been able to crack the starting lineup outside of the 1 year due to this injury-plagued season. He was able to get on the ice. So unfortunately, I have to go negative with him, but hopefully he can turn it around. He's still going to be part of the Vegas Golden Knights, so hopefully he can turn it around in the future. But unfortunately, it just looks like he has been a miss so far. Now, one guy who has been a hit so far is a minor leaguer. One guy who's been a hit so far for the Vegas Golden Knights is somebody who has been developing nicely in the minors, and he is going to get his opportunity, no doubt about it, in the NHL very soon, and that is Jonas Rondenberg. Understand that he has been with the Vegas Golden Knights. He has been part of the Henderson Silver Knights the last 2 seasons. He made his debut with the team back in 2020, and understand that he has been a goal-scoring machine in the AHL. I got to watch a few Henderson Silver Knights games this year. He was an impact player every single night. He was on the floor every single night, making situations, making things happen out there in Henderson. I'm just looking forward to seeing what he's going to do once he gets his shot in the NHL. So that is really the main guys in the 2017 NHL draft. Talking about that with the Vegas Golden Knights. Because understand that when it comes to the 2021 season, when it came to the 2017 NHL draft, after 5 years, you can kind of get a concept of what they're going to do or what they're not going to do. So I really say that's a really cool thing. Now, also continuing the conversation here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, let's talk about the Detroit Red Wings for a second. Let's go down to Detroit. Because the Detroit Red Wings organization, they are trying to figure out a head coach right now. Detroit is trying to figure out who their head coach is going to be. So there has been a lot of rumors and there's been a lot of interesting situations with the Detroit Red Wings. But there is one name that keeps surfacing. There is one name that keeps on being brought up with the Detroit Red Wings. And that is Tampa Bay Lightning assistant Jeff Halpern. Jeff Halpern, for a lot of NHL fans, you're going to pick up on that name. He was a longtime NHLer. He spent a lot of years in the NHL. He was even a guy who helped out in multiple Stanley Cup playoff runs. So, Jeff Halpern, I'm going to give you a brief description on who this guy was. So, Jeff Halpern, he did play for the Los Angeles Kings. He was with them for a couple of years, spent a couple of years with the Tampa Bay Lightning as well, and with the Dallas Stars. Understand that Jeff Halpern, he was with the NHL. He began in 1999 with the Washington Capitals, ended his career with the Phoenix Coyotes in 2013. Understand that he has been an assistant coach for the Tampa Bay Lightning since the 2016 NHL season. He has been an assistant coach in back-to-back Stanley Cup runs. He has also been a longtime assistant coach to John Cooper. Now, you might be asking yourself, what does Jeff Halpern have to do with the Detroit Red Wings? What does he have to do with that organization? Well, you got to remember who the general manager is in Detroit. You got to remember who is running the deck in Detroit. Steve Yzerman is not only a Detroit Red Wings legend. Detroit Red Wings general manager Steve Yzerman used to be a general manager in Tampa Bay. Understand that Steve Yzerman actually helped build the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions that you're seeing right now. Understand that Jeff Halpern was on the assistant coaching staff of a team that the current general manager is in Detroit. Understand that when it comes to Jeff Halpern and the fact that he played over 900 games in the NHL, here's my prediction. Here is my discussion here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. I will say that Jeff Halpern, the Dallas Stars legend Jeff Halpern, he is going to be the new head coach in Detroit. I say that Jeff Halpern is going to be the guy who is going to be behind the bench. He's going to get hired by his former general manager and Steve Yzerman, and he is going to call the shots in Detroit because of the fact that Steve Yzerman is going to bring over somebody from Tampa Bay. He's going to bring over somebody who is going to be familiar with Steve Yzerman. I say that Jeff Halpern is the best choice for that. I believe that Jeff Halpern is going to be a vital part of the Detroit Red Wings' upcoming future. So, if I had to make a prediction, that is going to be my lock for the upcoming head coaching vacancy. I have Dallas Stars legend Jeff Halpern being the new head coach out there in Detroit, helping out Steve Yzerman out there in the Detroit Red Wings system. So, as we're talking about the NHL here on the Sports Angle, I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. I also want to mention really quickly, there was this conversation that got brought up in the NHL that I feel needs to be discussed. There is a topic that I believe really needs to be branched out and really needs to be discussed because there has been some people talking about the Hockey Hall of Fame. There are people who are talking about this year's Hockey Hall of Fame. They're talking about the Hockey Hall of Fame nominees. They're talking about the people who are going to go in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And as much as I would love to talk about who's going to go in the Hockey Hall of Fame this year, as much as I'd love to discuss who are the players who are going to be eligible to get in there, you got to understand that there's going to be certain people that are going to be left out. Understand that there's going to be certain players that are going to be left out of the conversation. So, as you look at the 2023 class, the Hockey Hall of Fame, are there certain players that stand out? How about Scott Hartnell? Scott Hartnell played for the NHL for a long time, had well over 1,200 games in the NHL. He could be considered. How about Carrie Underwood's husband and Mike Fisher? This guy was a Nashville Predators legend, played over 1,100 games. This is a guy who was very scrappy. He knew how to drop the gloves. He was very gritty. That's a guy who could be considered. How about multi-time Stanley Cup champion Chris Kunitz? He was with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He won those cups with Sidney Crosby. He was with that organization well over 1,000 games. How about Columbus Blue Jackets' first ever superstar in Rick Nash? Rick Nash was a generational talent, first overall pick in 2002, over 400 goals in his career. He had an impressive career in Columbus. How about Dion Phaneuf, the Calgary Flames legend, the guy who was really there during the Jerome McGinley era? He had over 1,000 games played. Dion Phaneuf did an excellent job as a defenseman in the NHL, but him only having less than 500 points, I wonder if that's going to hold him back. You also have, for example, Henrik Zetterberg. Henrik Zetterberg, he won multiple cups with the Detroit Red Wings. He has been part of that organization for a long time. And the fact that he has almost 1,000 points, that is going to be very crucial to getting him into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So if I had to guess real quick, if I had to guess about some players that I think could get in, if there was anybody that I could make a connection to and I could say, you know what, I think they're going to get in. I think it's a really good possibility that their ticket gets punched into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'm going to say, for example, I think there's somebody that I really need to talk about, and that is Henrik Zetterberg. I think Henrik Zetterberg for the Detroit Red Wings, I believe that because he has that one Stanley Cup title, he has one Olympic gold medal, he already has a world championship title, because of the fact that Henrik Zetterberg has all of these accomplishments, I think he'll get in. And if there is somebody that I believe could make an argument, that would be Buffalo Sabres legend Thomas Vanek. Thomas Vanek, in over 1,000 games, had well over 350 goals in his career. He is a guy who lit up the lamppost. I think he could be a solid addition. I also believe that when it comes to the legend side of it, when it comes to the players that could get in on the legend side of the argument, I look at that and I go, all right, if there's one guy who could make an argument as to why he should get in, as to why he should be on that list, you could make a realistic argument, and I'm going to make the realistic argument right now, that Tony Amonte, I mean, this guy had, well over 900 points in his career. This guy won a World Cup. This guy did a lot in the NHL, and I think that he should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He is someone who has definitely done a lot in his career. So I'm going to say that when it comes to the Hockey Hall of Fame, I will be shocked that those guys do not get in the very near future. So continuing the NHL conversation here on the Sports Angle, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. This is the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. Now, before we get into the final 10 minutes, before we start plugging PR Connections, before we do our Las Vegas segment, I do want to mention one conversation with the Vegas Golden Knights. I do want to mention this one story that came out of the Vegas Golden Knights recently. Now, there was a story that came out of Las Vegas that I thought was fascinating. I believe that this conversation is crucial. Now, it was reported recently that the Vegas Golden Knights and forward Riley Smith are in a verbal agreement on a contract extension. There has been reports that have come out that Riley Smith is going to be coming back on a team-friendly deal on a 3x5, which is a 3-year deal, $15 million. Now, as a fan of the team, I am ecstatic. As a fan of the team, I believe that Riley Smith is great for Vegas. I believe that Riley Smith will be a fantastic player. As a hockey fan, I only have one question. As a hockey fan, I have one important question. How are the Vegas Golden Knights going to make the cap situation work? How, and I mean, oh how, is the Vegas Golden Knights going to figure out the cap hit? Because you have to understand something about the Vegas Golden Knights. They are currently at $85.15 million. Okay, they are currently over the cap with the Riley Smith deal. Understand that the Vegas Golden Knights are now going to have to shed even more salary now in order to get that cap hit back down. I mean, yes, you could make one deal. Yes, you could make that one good possibility, and that is to get rid of Nolan Patrick. You could possibly get rid of Laurent Brossoit. There is a good possibility that they could maybe flip the Shea Weber contract onto another team. But Vegas Golden Knights fans, I have to ask you a simple question. With you now being $2.8 million over the cap, with you being over $2 million over the cap, how are you going to fix your cap situation? How are you going to fix the financial burden that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to have? Because I don't know if they're going to. I don't know how the Vegas Golden Knights are going to fix the cap situation unless the Vegas Golden Knights do something creative. Unless the Vegas Golden Knights do an idea that is unprecedented. If the Vegas Golden Knights do what I'm about to propose to you, if the Vegas Golden Knights do this type of situation, then maybe, just maybe, they can make it work. I say by extending one misfit, you sacrifice another. By re-signing one misfit, you have to let go of another one. William Karlsson and his $5.9 million cap hit is a financial burden for the Vegas Golden Knights. William Karlsson and his $5.9 million cap hit is not best for business. William Karlsson and his $5.9 million cap hit is not justifiable when he is on your bottom six on certain nights. Understand that when it comes to William Karlsson, yes, he was fantastic in year one. I'll give him that. William Karlsson was a fan favorite. Wild Bill, as they called him. But Vegas Golden Knights fans, I want you to take your nostalgia glasses off for a minute. All right, I want you to take these off for a second, okay? When was the last time that you saw William Karlsson make an impact on the ice? When was the last time that you saw William Karlsson lead the team to a breakaway? When was the last time you saw William Karlsson be a team leader in points, goals, assists, anything? Because you got to understand that when it comes to William Karlsson, what he did in year one was great. But it's not but I use this a lot, and a lot of people tell me this a lot because it's true. It's not about what you did for me. It's not what you did to me in the past. It's what you've done for me lately. Okay? What have you done for me lately? And 12 goals and a +3 is not cutting it. Okay? A +3 means you are a slightly above average defenseman. 12 goals would be fine if you were on the bottom six. 12 goals would be okay if you were maybe on the third line behind Chandler Stevenson. If you were on the third line, maybe behind Nicholas Waugh. But being on the second line, getting paid $5.9 million, that will not cut it. So my angle on how to make the cap situation fit, my situation on how to fix the Vegas Golden Knights, you have to buy out William Karlsson, and you take the money from that, and that is how you afford to keep Riley Smith. You will keep Riley Smith by letting go of William Karlsson. So you break up the KMS line. You break up the Karlsson, Marchessault, Smith line. It's been around for 5 years. It's legendary here in Vegas. I get it. But the KMS line has to go. And William Karlsson will be the sacrificial lamb in order to keep Riley Smith. I want to know from all people watching around the world, do you agree or do you disagree that William Karlsson should be the sacrificial lamb in order to keep Riley Smith? We got about 10 minutes left here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. I do want to give this reminder to all people watching around the world that the PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media, we got a bunch of great shows for you. Man, bunch of fantastic shows here on PR Connections Radio, man. I mean, We Got the Power with Brian Gardner. I brought him on the show not that long time ago. Brian Gardner, great guy. He was a fantastic guest. You also have a bunch of shows on PR Connections Radio that I think you are going to like, that you're going to get a very good taste of when it comes to what they have on PR Connections Radio. You have Voices of Humanity with Sandra McKinney. I really hope I pronounced your name right. If I didn't, you can get mad at me later. But yeah, Voices of Humanity, Sandra, you do a fantastic job. I saw your recent show that you did, and I thought that you did a fantastic job with what you did. So, Sandra, go support her. Brian with We Got the Power, go support them. You got Big Tex from Defenders of Finance. Fantastic show. I'm a huge supporter of them. If you need to get your finances in check, definitely go watch their show. They're good at what they do. You also have, you got Classic Communications. You got that with Guy Dawson. You got the Cause Marking Chamber of Commerce. I've seen the stuff that they have done. They are fantastic with what they do here in Las Vegas. And I also would love to quickly mention a show also from Brian Gardner called So You Think You Want to Be a ... So I think that what he's doing, Brian Gardner, is fantastic. I think what Sandra's doing is great. I think what Big Tex is doing is wonderful. I think what Guy Dawson is doing is a well job with Guy Dawson. I'm happy that he's able to do this for PR Connections Radio. So just wanted to give that quick shout out to all the people who are here on PR Connections Radio, all the fantastic talent that does what they do every single night. So we got about 5 minutes left here on the show. So let's get into our Vegas report, shall we? Let's talk about the Las Vegas Aviators because, man, they've hit a little bit of a weird situation. Now, recently with the Las Vegas Aviators, right now, their win-loss record, they're a couple of games above 500. And when you look at the Las Vegas Aviators schedule, they're going to have a rough schedule coming up ahead of them. The rest of June is going to be very tough for the Las Vegas Aviators. You are going to have a situation where the Las Vegas Aviators, they're going to take on some of the best up-and-coming talent in AAA baseball. For example, in the month of July, they're going to be going to Salt Lake. They're going to be talking about, they're going to be going up against the Salt Lake Bees. They're going up against the Round Rock Express, talking about the Sacramento River Cats. I mean, it's going to be a real interesting situation. But right now, they're at home. They're taking on Albuquerque. What an amazing experience, by the way, for them to be at Las Vegas Ballpark. So, if you want to watch some fantastic baseball, you don't want to spend a lot of money, you want to grab the family, you want to take them to a baseball game, go to the Las Vegas Aviators. Go to aviators.com or go to MLB.com/Las Vegas and check out their schedule, check out their promotions and their giveaways. But yeah, so they're taking on Albuquerque right now. They've won 2 of their last 3 games. And if I had to say so myself, I'm a big fan of $2 beer night, and they just did that very recently. So $2 beer night, definitely go out there and celebrate the Las Vegas Aviators. They also have Bark in the Park, which is you bring your dog to the ballpark, you have a great time. It's always a fantastic situation there. And I also will mention that their upcoming series after Albuquerque is Round Rock. They have, Top Gun night on Friday the 1st. On the 2nd, they're going to have a fireworks show. And then they're going to have a 4th of July extravaganza on Sunday, July 3rd. And then on July 12th through the 17th, they're going to be taking on the Salt Lake Bees here in Las Vegas. So if you're a Las Vegas Aviators fan, if you're a Salt Lake Bees fan, heck, if you're a Los Angeles Angels fan, if you're an Oakland Athletics fan, go support local baseball, go support minor league baseball, and check out the Las Vegas Aviators at Las Vegas Ballpark. Let's move over to the women's side of it because the Las Vegas Aces, man, they have been tearing it up this year. Las Vegas Aces, they have been doing what's best for business. And then right now, they have been lighting up the lamp, lighting up the chart right now. They had a most recent victory, 96-95, against the Minnesota Lynx. And they are right now with an impressive record. Yeah, right now they have an impressive record, and I will say that watching the Las Vegas Aces has been fantastic. They are 12-3 right now on the season, and they are first in the WNBA. They are first in the Western Conference. Seattle's a little bit below them, and then you got the rest of the conference is not even on the same level as Las Vegas. So, shout out to the Las Vegas Aces. Shout out to that organization for doing a stand-up job. Becky Hammon, one of the best coaches in basketball, period. So, Las Vegas Aces, shout out to them. And then, I also got to give a little attention to the Vegas Nighthawks, the Arena Football League. They are here in Las Vegas, indoor football. And I will say the Vegas Nighthawks right now, Mike Davis as their head coach, doing a stand-up job. You got Cody Ely. He used to play at the New York Jets. He's with the organization. And the fact that their situation right now, the Vegas Nighthawks, I went to a game. They took on San Diego. I had a fun time. It was a blast to watch the Vegas Nighthawks. And their most recent game that they took on, it was here in Henderson, and they're taking on the Quad City Steamwheelers. So that should be a fun game. Go to Henderson. Go to the Dollar Loan Center. Check out that organization. They also have one more game afterwards, the Bay Area Panthers on July 2nd. So if you got 4th of July weekend, you're going to go to the Bay Area. Henderson Silver Knights, Bay Area Panthers. Should be a fantastic game at 4 p.m. if you can go down there in Henderson. So we got about a minute left, so I want to say thank you to everyone watching around the world. We have a fantastic episode planned for you next time. A lot of great content, and we're definitely going to stay tuned for that one. So I say bookmark your calendar, and until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. Have a fantastic week. Have a fantastic weekend, and watch all the sports you can. Support your local team. Support Las Vegas. Support your local minor league affiliates as well. And go watch all the content on PR Connections Radio, Defenders of Finance, We Got the Power, Voices of Humanity, the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. And follow us on all social medias at PR Connections Radio and at Sports Angle on PR. Until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli, and have a great one.